All right, I've got a very interesting show for you guys today. We're going to be talking about Mara, but really, when I'm talking about Mara, I'm using it as an example for all of the miners. In 2021, this stock went up 4,000%. It was an incredible run up. A ton of money was made off of that run up. It actually went from the low price of 39 cents all the way up to $84. And I'm going to kind of talk about the idea as to whether or not lightning will strike twice on the miners and we'll see some kind of a move like that. I went into the charts and some percentages, and I even broke down some predictions of what we've experienced in the last year and a half and what was the potential if we had caught those moves and what it could look like if we catch some of those moves going forward. I found it absolutely fascinating. I think you guys are going to love it. We're going to dive into Mara as an example for the miners, and this is going to be the first video in my series on crypto that I'm excited to bring to you guys. This is the Stocks with Josh show. Thank you guys for joining me today. Hit the like for me. Thank you for already hitting the like. Hit the subscribe to get the videos in this series. I want to do a quick shout out for the Discord. We had a beautiful win in there today with SoFi. Last week, when people were abandoning SoFi, I said it's a buy between 770 and 720. And as we get closer to earnings, we're going to get up to a minimum of $8.80. And throughout the week, when the stock continued to fall, there's folks shorting it, and that was wise because there was profit to be made shorting it going down. But I kept saying, guys, we're going to get a reversal on this, and it's going to become a payday. And we enjoyed that beautiful run up today. It's absolutely popped. And this morning, I told everybody where it was going to stop to the penny. I love doing technicals, guys, because that's what you can get out of it. It's not mojo. We're not reading tea leaves over here. The technicals show us where these stocks will go. And I'm especially excited about laying out the technicals for Mara today because I think it tells us where we're going to go. Now, people say about technicals that they're not always right. Some people will say technicals are only right 60 or 70% of the time. And I want to bring clarity to that point. Technicals are always 100% right, but our interpretation of timing and other factors make our interpretations only right if we're lucky 60% of the time. My interpretations of the charts are not always right, but I love studying them and I love sharing them with you guys on this page so that we can all become better and better at it and make better predictions moving forward. So let's get into things here with Mara. I'm just going to break down some basics, and you guys know some of this, but I want to go through it step by step. We're looking for the next catalyst on Mara. We just got through a major catalyst event with the ETFs, right? And now the only significant catalyst event for the miners moving forward is the Bitcoin halving event, which is in March or April of 2024. Now, traditionally, when we get to that point, Bitcoin takes off. The miners, they own a bunch of Bitcoin, and so they have this huge influx of new cash because the price of Bitcoin goes up, and they're sitting on a stockpile of Bitcoin, and so they're given a breath of fresh air, and the stock price follows because of those potential gains. And so traditionally, when the halving event has occurred, the miners take off like a rocket. That's how we got Mara from 39 cents all the way down right before the halving event, all the way up to $84 over the course of the next year because it ran up with Bitcoin. There's a lot of anticipation for the new crypto bull cycle. There's the expectation that Bitcoin's going to be going even higher. The altcoins are going to follow along. Hopefully fortunes will be made. We've already seen all of these come out of the crypto winter, and many of them go up hundreds of percent. Bitcoin up hundreds of percent. Other coins up 300-400%. And of course, we know the smaller the cap, the higher they go. So others are up thousands of percentage points already. And we're not even in the crypto bull cycle just yet, or at least we're not in the peak markup phase of it. So we're looking for the catalyst. Now, I want to point this out. Earnings has not typically been a good catalyst for the miners. Earnings typically reveal one of the problems that they have that they're constantly pressing up against. And what are those problems? Well, it's a capital intensive business. And in addition to that, they're always up against the shortage of energy. Energy is expensive. The prices of energy are always climbing. And the more that the price of energy climbs, it pushes against the profitability of this stock. And these companies constantly having to upgrade their equipment. We know that we're in the age of AI now, and they're competing against everybody else to try to get their hands on these chips to run more efficiently, to keep their energy costs down. We know this capital intensive business is always struggling for cash, and so when we get to the place of earnings, we typically find out how bad it's been. Rarely do we find that energy costs came down and that their profitability surged. So earnings typically isn't a great catalyst. We know the catalyst ahead is going to be the halving event. And so here's one of the first questions. We just had this massive push up to $31, and the question is this move up just beginning, or has it already come to an end? Are we going to begin to bleed off for the next couple months till we get to the halving? Well, here's what I want you guys to focus on. It's a particular price point, and I think I found the exact place and time where I want to buy it. I found my signal point in the charts, and I'm going to reveal it to you today. And there's going to be a different signal point for all of the miners. I think I found it for Mara, and it could turn out to be a huge payday for all of us. But here's the price point I want to give you guys right now, and it's the $18 price point. This is where Mara hinges, right? If we close on the weekly candlesticks beneath $18, then I think that confirms that we're going to continue to bleed off over the months until we get our next catalyst. But if we stay above $18, then it means that we could be seeing an early signal that the push up right now is not completely over. Now, even if we have another push up into the 20s, we could easily have what's typically referred to as a lower high. We had the 31 high, and we could find that we do get a push up if we stay above 18, but we might end up getting a lower high. So we might go to $24, $28 and not hit as high as 31. I'm not predicting that. I'm just bringing a full picture view for us to look at the moment. So at the moment, from our $31 high, we pulled back 53%. And so the first thing I want to ask on that is that typical? Is it enough of a pullback? 53% seems like a whole lot. Well, in August of 2022, after our swing high from $5 to $18, we actually pulled back 83% in 5 months. And then after that, in July of 2023, from our swing high, which was from $3 to $19, we actually came back 64%. And then in the last couple of months, we had a December 2023 high, which took us from $7 all the way up to $31. And as I said, we're sitting with a 53% pullback. So let's just take a minute and examine those moves, because this is where things got interesting. I began to look at what the opportunity actually was. In that August 2022 move, there was the potential of a 257% upswing from its low. All right, and that was a 3.57x. And then later on in July of 2023, the move up there was a 511% move, which was a 6.11x. And then later on in December of 2023, we just enjoyed a 335% up move. And so let's have some fun with math. All of those huge percentage moves occurred in under 1.5 years, and overall, combining them, the stock price actually had a total of a 14x potential move from the downside. Now, if you were to have catched all of those Mara waves, you could have turned $1,000 into $14,000. You could have actually, if you had caught all of them, you could have turned $10,000 into $140,000. And if you had caught all of them, and I understand that's not realistic, but I'm just looking at the strength of the moves right now. If you had caught all of them with $20,000, you could have turned that into $250,000 in just trading Mara alone. And if you had started off with $250,000 just trading Mara alone, catching the bottoms up to the tops, you could have turned that into 3.5 million. Now we know that it's not possible to catch all the bottoms and to sell at the tops perfectly, but I think it's very interesting to look at how much this stock actually moves, so that if you catch even percentages of those moves, there's a ton of opportunity. Now I also ran the numbers another way that I found interesting. It's what if you just started with $1,000 and you were able to roll the success of each of those moves into the next move, all right? So this was entertaining. If you had started with just $1,000 and successfully traded all of the Mara moves, the first move, which was up 257%, would have turned your $1,000 into $3,570. The next move, which was up 511%, would have turned your $3,570 into $21,812. And if you had caught the next move that we just enjoyed here in December, which was 335%, you would have turned your $21,812 into just under $100,000 in just the last year alone. So Mara has the potential of building wealth. In the last year and a half, you could potentially have taken $1,000 to near $100,000 in a pretty short amount of time. And so one of the things that causes me to think is, this stock is worth trading. Well, one of the next questions that we're going to ask ourselves is the party over? Well, if it continued to have these types of run-ups, even if I average those 3% waves that we just had over the last year, that would give us a wave potential of around 367% average run-up. So if we were to then take our 94,000 that we just created off of our 1,000 and catch the next two waves, if they were around the average of 360%, that means that on the next wave, we could turn $100,000 into almost $500,000. And if we caught another similar wave, we could turn almost $500,000 into $2 million. Now, I imagine there's some of you saying, Josh, it's all so crazy and unrealistic. All I'm talking about is opportunity that these minor stocks are giving because of the liquidity and because of these massive price swings. But here's where we now have to take a serious and sober look at the charts, because the truth is, as I said, almost all of the miners are down 90% from their all-time highs. So these stocks, even though they've had these incredible percentage moves up off of the bottom of their price action, the fact is they're all steadily going lower and lower and lower and lower. And I guess I would just come right on and tell you that I do not believe that Mara will go back to a previous high. So we went up to $84, and I do not think that we'll get back to $84 on Mara, because if we look at the entire history of the chart, it's simply indicating that that's not what's happening. So unless Bitcoin were to break out in the next couple years to $1 million, this has been in a multi-year decline. For those investing in it, the miners have been terrible investments. I hope you guys can hear that. So for the buy and hold community, you've been getting absolutely slaughtered trying to hold on to Mara. But for the swing traders who are trading the technicals and picking this up off of the bottom, which has been 39 cents, $3, $5, and recently $7, this has had a ton of opportunity. And so what do the charts tell us about the opportunity, and where will this come back to? Where's the new $3, $5 price point? Where's the new $7 price point? All right, so I put a lot of support and resistance lines on the chart, and you guys can see that we're operating off of a very old descending line of resistance that so far we have not broken above. Every time we come up and test it, we get rejected, including this last time. Now, this is where I think that we should buy Mara moving forward. I think it's all in the RSI indicator, relative strength indicator. I've found a pretty consistent trend line that if you bought on the touch of this trend line over the last couple waves, you would have caught the wave. Now we're above it now, but if we do come down and we touch this trend line, I'm going to take a risk position and believe that we'll catch another wave. Where will the price be when it touches that trend line? Nobody knows. If it holds above 18 and it runs back up into the 20s, we could have really strong selling pressure, because remember, the RSI measures selling pressure or buying pressure. So that's what we would be buying. We don't know what the price will be. We would be buying the point in time in which it comes down and hits our chart. Unfortunately, that's why you got to stay connected to these videos and make sure you hit the subscribe button so that when I see that touch and I take a risk position, I'll let you guys know. But you can also put it on your own charts. Here are the conditions for the RSI that we're going to be using. We want to see that it's oversold on the 1 and the potentially 2-day time frame, so on both of them. We also want to see it come down and touch our trend line where it's finding support. Then we'll look above and see where that price point is. Now, to be clear, it's very important that we watch the $18 price point, because for those who are looking to short this stock down, if you didn't get in the short at 31 and you didn't see that descending resistance line, it's not time to short at the neckline of 18, because right now that neckline of 18 has got some pretty strong support to it. It's yet to break down. Now, what would constitute a breakdown? Well, I would say that we need to see it close beneath that $18 price point for an entire week. It needs to close on a weekly candle to indicate that we could continue to go down. Right now we're above it, and so be careful about trying to short this too early. All right, just to wrap up the big picture view on Mara, I'd be crazy not to attempt to catch the next Mara wave and this multiple 100-point percentage swings up. But we are getting lower and lower on a group of stocks that are not achieving new highs. They're only achieving, even with the Bitcoin bull run, they're only achieving a series of lower highs and lower lows. And we got all the way down to 39 cents prior to the last one. And so we want to keep an open mind, and this is one of the things I talked with you guys about months ago. We want to be careful to buy on strong technical confluence and not do a buy and hold strategy. Now, some of you guys say, well, I can't do that, or I don't have the patience for it, so I just want to jump in now and hope to catch one of those big moves you're talking about later. Well, I don't advise that, because like I said, the ability for this thing to go down is incredible. It's just as significant as its ability to go higher. Oh, I gave you guys the percentage moves down, and the typical percentage move down is between 70 to 80%. That's normal. And so if you happen to buy up at $31, or if you happen to buy at $18, a massive lump sum, you could suffer an enormous amount of capital loss. The trend, because of capital costs and rising energy costs, right? And the fact that Bitcoin momentum has been slowing. That's another huge factor that you'll hear me talk more about. The Bitcoin is becoming stable and mature. It's becoming a more mature asset class. We know that's happened because of all of these ETFs that were formed. You're going to see more stability in the Bitcoin price. You're not going to see the huge runs that we've seen from the beginning of Bitcoin. We've already seen them steadily decreasing. And so that is going to also play a big impact on the miners. So the miners are going down consistently throughout each cycle, but they still have these massive swings up. We're getting ready to come to a catalyst event, which should likely give us 1 or 2 or 3 more huge moves on Mara, but it's absolutely critical that you get in at the right price. Buy and hold strategies are likely to get wrecked. Guys, I'll give you more technicals on some more of the miners in some upcoming videos, as well as the Discord. Click on the link to check that out and make sure you get those updates. Appreciate all of you guys joining me today. Peace and blessings, my friends. Take care.